Hello, everyone. Um, I'm aware that there's some flickering or weird, like, digital static kind of stuff going on. Unfortunately, I am unable to address that right now. So we're just going to do it, and there are going to be problems, and just whatever. It's just all there is to it. Hello, and welcome to another tabletop RPG design session. Um, Today I want to focus on playbook stuff. So we're going to move away from our kind of general foundation stuff and we're going to get into some more specific moves. And like playbook definition stuff. So like things I want to get today. I want like a list of playbooks, some general playbook moves, or like generic, really, is what I mean to say. So this would be some like kind of broad and modular ones that we can plug into a bunch of different playbooks, which like you'll see a lot of them in Blades, and I'll go over those when we get there. And then some more specific flavorful playbook moves. So these are the kind of the three things that I want to do today. So playbook. What do we think our total number should be, and like what should the different playbooks be? So in Blades, which is what we're building off of, we got what? The Whisper 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 playbooks. We might do a narrower range for ours. And we're not going to get into like fully fleshed out playbooks. We're just going to start to kind of establish the groundwork for them. And in terms of like determining specific playbooks that I want to include, I don't know if I even have a lot of notes on this topic. I have some, so I'll use those. So I have like a big broad list. And then some kind of more specific ones. So in no particular order, I have Time Traveler. Of course, Time Traveler gets there first, right? Mask, enigmatic hero. So this would be like a tuxedo mask. Time Traveler would be whatever her name is, Chibiusa or whatever. I'm your daughter from the future. Come back to help you. A fusion playbook. You know, this would be like the Garnet. The unlikely hero. This would be Sailor Moon herself. The outsider, which is kind of more of like an alien kind of thing. So like some kind of otherworldly creature. And then what else do I have here? Guardian, Sidekick, and do I have any other kind of? And these are kind of I'm being deliberately pretty open with them. And yeah, going directly from source material is where a lot of these come from, right? So like, and let's just tag them. Let's just be clear on what these are. Right? Where did I get all these ideas? So this would be like a... This is kind of more like a generic Sailor Scout, but probably Jupiter / Venus, like the more kind of clear-cut, straightforward ones. Sidekick, this could be Luna the cat. Outsider, this would be like Sailor Venus. Whoops. Like kind of the more aloof or enigmatic kind of character. And then what we're missing is like a rival, which would be like Sailor Mars and Smarty Pants, which is a Mercury. And this is already a lot. This is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is probably too many. I mean, Fusion we can table because it doesn't fit in our initial... I mean, so then here's also kind of the idea, right? Is like, I want these playbooks to not need to be so specific that they are like team playbook specific. Like in Blades, right, you have your different crew types and you have your playbooks, but there aren't like pairings automatically. You kind of make them work for any given setup. So similarly, I think Sidekick needs to go, honestly. It could fall under something like this, right? We want these to be kind of general enough that they can apply anywhere across the board. Everyone keeps talking about masks. I haven't played it, haven't read it. I really should. It's clearly relevant, but I haven't. So, whoops. So, our unlikely hero thing covers kind of what you're talking about, Salmello, or like that's my to be more clear about what I mean by this. This is like this would be the classic protagonist on all of these things, right? So the rival, right? Like rival character, and this is like a huge anime trope, right? They're not always on. They're not always an antagonist, right? Like I like the idea of the antagonistic ally character, right? Which I feel like Sailor Mars is kind of that. The character who like gives the lead protagonist a lot of shit all the time, and they have like friction, but that is their avenue for like character growth for both parties involved, and that they like get into fights, but it's this like we're fighting or we're like it's more like bickering or squabbling, but then we're still ultimately gonna like have that proceed to a place where we work together and do the thing. So it's the like friendly or sorry, it's the frenemy. It's not the friendly enemy. It's the frenemy. This time traveler category could fall under like an outsider category as well. And of course, we want to have a robot playbook because as a game I'm making, I feel that robots are important. Yes, Sith Master, exactly. The whole like, we can't let the monsters beat you because I have to beat you later. You know, like it's that whole thing. Yeah, and like there's going to be the thing where you can take moves from other playbooks and stuff like that. So they're not as starkly defined as anything. So it's mostly a matter of picking the ones that are going to be most fruitful for generating like iconic archetypal kind of play styles, and then letting people piece together the more niche things out of those. Um, so I like the idea of having like a really straightforward, like supportive kind of character, which is what the Guardian would be. The rival is the kind of more, you know, flip of that, the more antagonistic ally. Um, Smarty Pants, this can probably go away. I think this can fall under Guardian. Because like in as much as they each have different personalities, in terms of their like team role, they're really like these three characters are really straightforward, right? They're just all there to help. They might help in different ways. They might have different strengths, but we kind of want to have like a core, one of our core playbooks just be like that squatty kind of vibe. Um, because in this game, like so in Blades, being specialized in terms of your skill set is really important to the game, and that's what the playbooks are. But for our game, it the like everyone could be a guardian, and they could all be like super specialists. Like one of them could be a sniper, and one of them could be a sword fighter or whatever. Because that's not as important to our game, right? What is important is the how you relate to each other within the team, and how you deal with feelings stuff. It's kind of what it's more about, right? And so these all really inform a kind of emotional space. With the enigmatic hero being this like aloof helper who's all about like, oh, I have to like keep my identity secret. I should be writing this down. Aloof helper, tension between secret ID and RL and real life friendship. So, right, this is the Tuxedo Mask thing where it's like, oh yeah, like when we're not in our superhero selves, I call you Meatball Head and I think you're a dunce. But I totally am in love with you when I'm a superhero, and you're in love with me when you're a superhero, but you hate me. It's that whole having the double lives of the characters be split and have like totally different and unknown inversions within that. Um, so the time traveler might end up being like an outsider, might fall into this outsider category. But the idea with the time traveler, right? Like this is a core thing in Sailor Moon, and I just think it's really funny that it's like part of the thing. But I would love to make that like a trope that we include, right? This like because going back to our team playbook, right? Like in the origin section for our default setting of the Celestial Kingdom, there is this whole like parallel timeline transported from the past, whatever. Like there's a bunch of like hand wavy time travel bullshit that is, it's like part of the flagship for the genre. I definitely want to have like an edgelord playbook, um, like you were talking about Salmello. Um, this is the Cry Shield extraordinaire kind of character, the one who like suffers and broods and um, suffers and broods. Kind of like troubled relationships to other PCs, demands their attention to unlock potential. Right, so this is the whole like, oh, I'm all suffering and dark, but if you can like get me to open my heart or whatever, then I become powerful. This is the like deep catharsis like suffer and then have this like big revelatory moment kind of playbook, we might end up combining rival and edgelord. These two could be two sides of the same concept, right? Because the whole like I have to suffer, I am like close to the corruption thing might incline you to be antagonistic with the PCs, or it's that you are someone to be like pitied or that they'll have sympathy with, right? Um, this playbook also covers converts, right? Um, like a Lapis or a what's her name, the tiny green one, um, from Steven Universe, right? So the character that like, and that could also be an outsider. I feel like there's a couple different ways that you could play that one, but the idea of this character who is see, I'm seeing similarities now between like the kinds of stuff that the outsider is going to do, the kind of stuff that the rival is going to do, and the kind of stuff that this like edgelord archetype might want to do. Peridot, thank you. Yes, right. Like Peridot, you doesn't get it, but wants to get it, can't admit that she wants to get it, and then all the other characters want her to like get it. They want her to like understand and be a friend. But she is like she has struggles with that, and that's what makes her character interesting. Um, and she can still like help the team, but getting her getting her on board is kind of what her story is about. Um, so we're gonna do outsider as our like edge lord weirdo like edge lord slash turncoat slash rival. I feel like see, so the Enigma is different, right? The Enigma is about the right. So let's talk about like what the Enigma is about really. Tension between secret identity and real life friendship. This is the one. This is what matters most, right? It's about the double life being split, or sorry, being inverted across that line. Inverted across the divide. Right? So this is the thing where like you're a jerk until you're in your like secret identity, or that they have this like relationships that are asymmetrical based on the yeah, like you're two-faced, right? Um, and that we see completely different sides of them, and that they engage with the other PCs in completely different ways when they're masked versus unmasked. And also, there's all this stuff around not letting them know that you're one of the superheroes, right? Like, this is the most classically comic book superhero archetype because Tuxedo Mask doesn't want it. He has a secret identity, right? Whereas the other characters don't really. Like, not it's not important. It just never comes up. It's just like, yeah, okay, they transform. That's fine. Somehow, no one knows that Serena is Sailor Moon, and like, even though there's no disguising at all, no one gets it. But also, like, no one really sees the Sailor Scouts working, and it's like the secret identity isn't from the public; it's from the other superheroes, which is something that I find really interesting. Um, and yeah, if we want to go into Persona 4 or some of these other kind of touchstones that I want to go into, right? Like, yeah, the enigmatic hero, you could have that be Naoto, potentially. Because it's like you have this split self. It would in that case the thing that you don't want them to know, right? Like the reason you don't want them to know about your like superhero self is because your superhero self is this like differently gendered thing. And Persona kind of half steps on that in a way that I really don't like, where they sell. I feel like they sold Naruto short in terms of like going into some gender stuff, but that's because they just wanted to be super normative with gender and just be like, it's actually okay that you're a girl, whatever. When like clearly Naruto has some kind of trans identity, right? At the very least, my headcanon is that they're in like a non-binary or transmale space. Um, right? And it can be, there's room for this, for the enigmatic hero thing to be incredibly overt the way that Tuxedo Mask is, or to be more subtle the way that Naoto is. And this is, yeah, that whole idea of having the dramatic irony play out, right? Because like everyone at the table is going to know that you're the Tuxedo Mask character, right? But we all have to pretend that we don't know, and that pretending is fun, and playing into that is fun, right? Um, and then the outsider is don't read my poetry, Molgoth, fucking Hot Topic shopper, whatever her name is. I can't remember her name. But yeah, she would be the like outsider character, right? Where she's all. So we're gonna lump the rival into the outsider. Um, and if you want to go the like hard Sailor Mars approach to this, you just don't play up the like I'm a different kind of person than you stuff, and you don't take. I'm sure there'll be some moves around that, or some origins around that, etc. Right? There's some details in the playbooks that will help flesh us out the same way that we have some lists and stuff to choose from in Apocalypse World. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to do the limit one playbook thing. Um, my inclination is towards no, um, because the thing I am going to limit, so everyone has to pick a role, right? So with the team playbook stuff, this a lot of this section is about the team overall, but then the role thing is like, and there can be some overlap. You have to qualify it, but anyways, the idea is that we get some context on like who the characters are before we go into like mechanically what the characters are. So each player chooses one of these roles, right? Like royal family member, loyal knight, suitor slash lover, advisor, high priest, rival, forgotten child, court jester, lowly servant, right? We have like some options for people to choose from, and you know, it's not a final list or anything, but that's the idea. Is that essentially we offer up some character concepts, right? You pick one of those, and then you pick a playbook, and you kind of make those work together. But yeah, I don't know if there's room for everyone to be an enigma necessarily. It might be like some playbooks are unique and some aren't. I don't know. That's getting into weird territory. I think the easiest answer would be to say, cool, none of these are unique. Or sorry, all of these are unique. And there are 7 of them or whatever. However, I could see having a thing where lots of characters or all the characters are Enigma, right? We can think of the most dramatic case, so like everyone's an Enigma, which means that everyone is friends in real life and has one kind of relationship, and then everyone is a superhero, but none of them know that each other are superheroes. And then that's our story. So then every time that the evil thing has to go get fought, it's like they all transform independently and then they like meet up and are a team. The Enigma one, it very much feels like. So if we expand what the Enigma means, right, then we can make it more reasonable for a lot of people to have it, right? And they can all. Initially I was like, oh, that would never work, but like it could actually kind of work. And the thing is that not everyone has to play the Enigma the same way, right? It can be like a couple of them know that they're superheroes, and then there are a couple that are like secret superheroes, or it could be like 2 little like individual cliques of like who knows and who doesn't. There can be some asymmetry and stuff in there. There's room to make it work if you want to. I don't think I can like strictly answer that or make that decision. I'm gonna try just having it be open, that people can pick multiple of the same playbook and all that kind of stuff. The one really nice thing about unique playbooks with Apocalypse World is that you show up to a game of Apocalypse World already having printed out all of the character sheets you will need, right? Because you're just like, here's the range. You print one of each and you bring them, right? And that's the game. And that's really nice in terms of the like physical stuff of the game. Um, I mean, Blades in the Dark, there are no unique playbooks, right? Your squad of breakers could all be whispers. That's like as legit a choice as any other, right? So, and like your first move that you take as a whisper doesn't even need to be from your playbook, right? That's how open ended Blades is with it, right? Because you can take Veteran as your first move because it gives no restriction on your first move that you choose, and like Blades works. I think people will be inclined mostly to pick different playbooks anyways. Um, so maybe it doesn't matter, right? Like Blades is the most open ended about it, right? I think it's at the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of like there's Apocalypse World and there's Blades. If we want to like try to use a dichotomy, which isn't always helpful, but um, in Blades you can like all be the same playbook. You can all play different playbooks. There's an interaction between the playbooks you choose and your crew playbook. The only one that's unique is the crew playbook, which I think kind of ties things together and accounts for some of that weirdness of saying like everyone can just be the same thing. And then in Apocalypse World, there is only, if we want to frame it, if we want to look back from Blades at Apocalypse World, there is only one crew playbook, and it is the Apocalyptic Survivors, or all the crew stuff is cooked into like all of those kind of broader why are you working together, etc. They're all kind of built into the other playbooks, and you cobble together a crew out of individual playbooks and what they contain. Um, and so it's like in my game, I'm using that Blades approach of saying you pick a crew and then build out from it. Whereas in Apocalypse World, you come at it from the other end, and you say, okay, here's who each of us are. What kind of like structure do we live in? What is our setting, etc.? Like what all makes sense, and you frame it that way from the characters out, whereas I'm going from the like team and from the setting, right? Like we have the first thing that we define in our like table playbook. I haven't decided what exactly to call these yet. We talk about the situation, right? The Celestial Kingdoms detail the situation, the nature of the darkness's agenda, its origin, some stuff about the mundane world. Lastly, we go into, okay, and who are we within this? So we go through all of our setting creation and everything first, and our antagonism comes in first, and then we decide who we are and how we are a response to that. And then once all of that is set up, then we go and choose characters. And I feel like, and we have these like ideas of roles as well. So like, oh, well, I'm the royal family member. I'm like the inheritor of this like moon kingdom that we're in, this time traveling moon kingdom. And then cool, I'll be your loyal knight. Like I'm here to protect you. And then I'm the rival. I'm like your bratty younger sibling who would be in line for the throne if not for you or whatever, right? Like boom, boom, boom. We've got characters, and then cool, we have these roles. What playbook am I? Right? Well, it might be that I'm the inheritor of the royal family. You might think I'm the unlikely hero, but actually, I am the outsider, or I am the enigma. Right? I'm the inheritor of this kingdom, and I have this other life that I lead. Right? This secret life where it's either me as the inheritor of the kingdom has a disguised like regular world self that I go live as, or vice versa. Um, and then the like, oh, I'm the loyal knight, but actually I'm the outsider because I am tormented by this thing, and I think that you're not like fit to rule, and I have all these issues with you. And then the like rival character might actually end up being a guardian, where it's like, okay, yeah, like I think that I should be in line to the throne, but what matters most to me is actually just the integrity of the throne and the royal line. So I'm the guardian, right? Having those layers come in, I think is really helpful in character creation to giving us more rich interpersonal relationships, which ultimately is what I want the game to most be about. And this is why the playbooks are kind of about how we move through the world and how we relate to people, less so than like I am the sword fighter, I am the bow fighter, I am the scientist, whatever. Right, and like diversity is has like a functional aspect, right? Like Sal Mello is saying, right? Like just because in Apocalypse World is not allowed, but there's D&D where it's mechanically better to cover different roles in the group, right? So like there is in terms of the mechanisms of the game, there is an incentive to have a wider spread. And also I think like we're all role players, which means we all want to be special snowflakes, which means we all will like come up with unique characters and try to distinguish ourselves within the group. Um, People will be disinclined to play the exact same thing as someone else at the table. And I feel like we can just kind of let that all shake out in the wash. Yeah, and so the idea is that we have a bunch of structure backing this up, which is why I went on that long tangent. So I think it's okay for us to have these be uh, non-unique, right? Whereas in Apocalypse World, because of how important they are to defining the setting, they are unique, right? And how important it is to keep everyone working together, they are unique. And to build this idea of scarcity, they are unique, right? Like there's a whole bunch of other thematic kind of merit to them being unique in Apocalypse World, and also because in the source fiction, there's a lot more uh, like lonerism. You know, it's like in Mad Max, there is Mad Max, the Battle Babe, right? Like he wanders around and he is the only person like him because there are so few people left in the world, and because you know it's part of the genre. I mean, I don't feel like I'm wrong, Salmello. I feel like that was a good quote, but it's 2017 now. You gotta correct your information. You're misattributing the time. Um, so time traveler. This one is a bit more like probably going to get folded into something else. But let's look at what we have again and talk about what's important. Because some of these we also like haven't gone into in any detail at all, like the robot or the fusion. Um, and I feel like these two are actually very important. But so the Guardian. This is like straightforward power of friendship, very direct. So this is if you want to be this is like the core. I don't want to say default, but like kind of. This is just like I am here to be a directly useful, helpful person. I am the cheerleader and linebacker rolled into one. Um, and so then we have to think about, okay, well, what makes this character interesting? So I think a lot of what makes this character interesting is actually about the other characters, right? And so giving this playbook lots of hooks and interaction with others, they need to take an interest, right? Which is why I think the whole idea of like calling it the Guardian is important, right? Because you're here to you've like kind of got your shit together, or at least are more inclined to help other people get their shit together. Um, so that's what this one is kind of about. Maybe the whole fusion thing actually falls into there, but the idea with the fusion is that this one is about a few different things. And like I'm trying to encapsulate Garnet, who is such an amazing character from Steven Universe, and that's like a big challenge because first of all, this is like a super queer playbook because it is about like non-monogamy and like relationship anarchy and all this kind of stuff. There's like a whole bunch of themes operating in that layer with the character. Um, it's about like empathy and being good at relationships. Um, okay, because you are a relationship. And then possibly fusing with others, identity, nature of self. Right? It's like it is both a like self-reflective one because you can expose your own like the multitude within you can be explored, and that's interesting. And then also the idea of like framing more people into that and incorporating more people into that and that kind of thing. Um, yeah, so the Guardian is about like intervening on others' behalf of others. And I can very quickly imagine the dark side to all of these, right? Like the Guardian becomes the like pushy, smothering, domineering friend who always thinks they know better than you, how to like live your own life, right? Like they're meddling, all that kind of stuff, right? The outsider edgelord kind of archetype has a clear dark side where it's just like you want to actually supplant other people and like tear them down. Um, the fusion dark side is where everything falls apart, right? Like this whole web of relationships that you have snaps, and that you literally go to pieces, like you fragment into multiple people. Um, right? Like if there is dysfunction, it is extra hard on you, right? Um, suffers in situations of dysfunction. The robot is kind of about being this like ultra aloof, like you don't get it at all. Maybe this is actually an outsider thing, but I like the idea of there being a playbook that is a literal robot. Um, the dark side of the enigmatic hero, right, is that you need to be alone and that the others can't be trusted, and like this kind of paranoid, megalomaniacal thing. And yeah, like the fusion playbook doesn't have to like prescribe that you're just literally like playing Garnet, you know, like you don't have to be that exact character, but it's a bunch of stuff in that vein. Um, and ultimately is about this like heavy codependent intertwining. It's kind of like the think Mortal from Monster Arts, right? This is like a nice flip side to the Mortal, because the Mortal is all about being like you're mine, I love you, never leave, stay forever. You just like gather them in and latch yourself onto them. You're a remora or whatever. You're the mutually parasitic relationship. We want to do a more positive spin, so we're going to have like this symbiosis thing. Um, and so the robot is about, an exploration of emotion, of distance, um, an exercise in understanding for this like fundamentally alien character, because we want the whole "my friends are my power" thing, right? So then the whole like robot archetype is that we make it harder for you to get at that stuff, and you have to like do more digging and more introspection and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think there will be some moves that are around like either helping you resist certain types of damage because it just doesn't like affect you in the same way. Um, right, but it's like it's about being an emotional robot. um, It's not about having a laser gun for an arm. It's about being someone who is distinctly like outside of the kind of common human connection paradigm, whatever that looks like, right? That could just be that you're a sociopath struggling with it. Um, and then the time traveler idea was just be that you are like literally a time traveler. Um, so like you have a bizarre, asymmetrical relationship to one or more characters because in the past slash future you are related in whatever way. Right, says Master, it's kind of the idea, right, of like there's going to be some kind of trade-off moves, certainly. I mean, yeah, like I don't want to say like everyone who is a sociopath is a robot in that way, but the common like robots are a trope in Sailor Moon. There's a character that is a cyborg, Sailor Saturn, I want to say. The one who like it can destroy the solar system at any moment, and that's her job. Is like a robot, basically, um, and has this kind of like alien quality to them, which I think is really interesting to explore. Um, See, whereas like this one is outsider in a more social sense. Like this one really wants to be the outsider with like capital O, like the you're like super weird. This would be like l'étranger, the stranger, right? In fact, we're calling them the stranger. And this covers being an alien or a robot. Great, we did it. Um, so the idea of a character who like fundamentally lacks empathy. But that doesn't mean that they like don't care to get empathy, but that they're trying to, but wants to understand, which is key, right? This turns it from being a evil, nasty thing to just a right. And like, I'm not going to tell anyone that this is what that playbook is about, but maybe someone could be like, yeah, I'm playing a like non-neurotypical person struggling with understanding emotion that other people have. Um, and yeah, I don't want to make it like a shitty judgmental thing about that. That's not the direction I want to take it in. Um, but it's mostly to inform a kind of like emotional positioning, right? And that's what all of these are really about. And this can range like there's all of those types of ways of being exist on a spectrum where it's just like maybe you're just like very awkward socially or whatever, and like I don't know, there's all kinds of judgy societal bullshit around like whether you're diagnosed or not, and like putting names on these conditions, which are these kind of fuzzy parts of the range of the whole human experience, right? And some of them we deem problematically atypical and we categorize in this way, but those categories are not like cannot be because of the nature of human experience, etc., like strictly categorized, or at least people don't fit neatly into them. So, you know, yes, definitely. Like we wouldn't call it depression in the game. There's this idea of like the darkness, which represents both oppression, like this external pressure, um, as well as like despair and succumbing to that crappy stuff. So it's a big part of the game, and the idea is that these characters are all able to become like they're normal people who suffer under this stuff just like the rest of us are, right? When they're normal people, but then they get the opportunity to through their relationships and special power like transform into superheroes who can then like directly fight a monster that is the embodiment of their own oppression, um, and it becomes like a literal thing, but that all is a metaphor for just like struggling with issues the way all of us humans, you and me talking right now, do. Right? That's what we're going for, Lucas. So yeah. Somehow, personally, I'm already wanting to play a fusion/stranger hybrid. Like, take a lot of moves from the one that you aren't starting as type thing. So, overlap of powered by friendship but doesn't really understand how it works is very interesting. Or, like, you have this one relationship, right? Like, so let's imagine, like, start using Garnet as a starting point, right? So, like, you are a literal, like, combination person. You're these two people, like, fused into one. And then trying to relate to additional people outside of that, right? Like you can go into the whole like struggling to overcome a like codependent or overly like one relationship that is eclipsing all others, right? There's lots of neat stuff in there, and yeah, like how you spice it from the other playbooks can make for all kinds of interesting stories. Like the idea of being on the one hand this character that has this at least one very very successful functional relationship that exists in kind of this internal space, but then trying to reach out beyond that and having struggles around that. And yeah, like Garnet is portrayed as being kind of robotic and aloof and like seems to kind of be in her own world a lot of the time. And so yeah, like I totally see that as a way to play that character that is interesting. And then you like slowly open up what is going on to the other characters. And for like in Steven Universe, the whole like Garnet arc is deeply rewarding for the viewer. It's this really cool story where you're like, oh, there's this whole other thing going on. And we have that moment when she gets forcibly split, um, where we see her in a position of vulnerability and suddenly understand, like one where all of her power comes from, right? Because we're always like, oh, Garnet's just a huge badass. What's up with that? But then we get to see her when she's more exposed and weak. Um, and so we would want to have some moves around that, certainly. Um, so the one that we haven't really talked about much is the time traveler one, but I think this is actually here's going to be my argument of why I'm including this and why I think this is interesting, which I've written out here, right? You have this a bizarre asymmetrical relationship to one or more of the characters because in the past/future you are related in whatever way. So this is right the like Chibiusa thing where it's like I'm like you are literally my mother, but I have gone back into the past, wherein you are like one too young to like directly be my mother right now, and like haven't like there's no clear like my dad is this guy. I know who my dad is too, and he's Tuxedo Matt. Like that is such a cool triangle, right? Where it's like, okay, you're my mom, and I hate you, and you're so dumb because I'm from the future and I know better, but I'm also a kid. And then, yeah, my dad is this other guy, and he's all like being Tuxedo Mask, and has also like I think at that point in the show, if I remember correctly, Tuxedo Mask was one of the bad guys for a while, and it's during that time that she shows up, and so it's all about her relationships to these two characters and her knowing this is another like big dramatic irony playbook, right? Where it's like, okay, well, we all know that because this character is in, it means that there's this fate in store for these other two characters, where one day they will eventually make a baby together, but we don't know the circumstances of it, right? We can still play to find out what happens. I don't think it wrecks the game in that way. I think it's actually really interesting to be like, we're going to end up at this place eventually, and everyone's like, we are okay. Like what's that going to look like? How are we going to get there? Um, and because it's in the like distant future, it's not like we ever have to satisfy that condition necessarily within the game, but that it creates a framework for two other characters to play around in, and then has this one character who bounces between the two of them, um, forcing them to have these like experiences of revelation about the characters. I'm thinking in this game, everyone's probably going to mostly just be like, because we have to pick like an obligation that we all share. Right? We're all in high school together. We all like have the same day job. We work at the temple. I think there's room for them to have different ages and to be like in this wider range, but they're all part of the same daily situation. So like it could be that one of the characters is a. So for example, we have a time traveler who is who's the like unlikely hero, but from the future. So like I'm you from the future is totally an option for time traveler, and I think a really good one. Who then goes back in time and works as a teacher at their own high school and is like teaching classes that they're in or whatever. And so then we can still all have high school as our obligation. We all have to go to high school. And while we're at high school, we're going to suffer the travails of, how our own, selves get crushed and ground under the foot of all the shitty stuff going on. And so, I see no reason why that means that they all have to be students of the high school, right? It can just be like, this is the crucible of our getting fucked with by all the dark, bad stuff. Yeah. And yeah, the idea of like being trapped out of time, stranded in the wrong time, all that kind of stuff. Could adult be a playbook then, i.e. an outsider? Oh, we got that, right? The outsider. Or the stranger, right? Like you could play the stranger as an adult who like can't relate to, right? I don't get these kids, right? And that could be your whole emotional journey. It could be about trying to connect with these young people and having that generation gap to cross. That could be what makes you a stranger. Right? And like teacher's going to have a boss, and in as much as the teacher is someone else's boss, they still have a boss above them who shits all over them, right? And just has or it can be the like broader external pressure stuff of like, cool, well you're teaching this stuff, and you're from the future where this like shitty misogynist bullshit that you're being told to teach now, you know better than this, but you have to teach it in order to maintain your disguise. And what does that feel like for you, and how do you get through that, right? So there's lots of room for like people to be in different social strata within the crew and still all suffer in the same place and for the same reasons. Yeah, the stranger is Steve Buscemi being like, "Hello, fellow teenagers," right? Yeah, like the parent or the like you could be one of the characters' parents and not understand them and like be going on that kind of journey, and that could be your whole story arc. Boom, there you go, right? And then you also transform into a magical girl, which is the thing that is true for all of these characters, right? They all transform and do magical girl shit, right? Like Tuxedo Mask is still a magical girl. Right? Like you can take these ideas. Okay, well, I'm a teacher at the school, and I'm like related to some of the other characters in this way, and I am a time traveler, or I am an enigma, or I am a guardian, or I am the stranger, or I'm the unlikely hero. Right? It can be like this whole late bloomer thing. Unlikely hero has gotten the least fleshing out because it is like by far the most obvious one. Right? This one is about being klutzy but lovable, relies on their friends, has power in clutch moments due to friendship, love, shines when the situation is darkest. Right, and that's the whole like Sailor Moon or Steven from Steven Universe is a classic example, right? Where like Steven is like absolute garbage at adventuring until the moment when everyone's about to get wrecked by a giant laser, and then like he's there with the shield, right? Like it's about being like your power is going to be really spiky and all about like doing stuff in the really clutch moments. And also about like burning out, and also about being really about like failing a lot, or like failure is really important. Failure / hardship, very important, because we have to like pull the heroism out of them, like we drag them kicking and screaming into being a hero. And so they're going to have stuff that triggers off of when they fail, and stuff that triggers off of like when someone else is about to die, right? They'll get a chance to act, or like to be really powerful, or yeah, it's like someone's about to die, and if they do die, you get this. If you save them, this happens. Like I'm sure we can make some moves around that. And so I think I haven't talked about it because it's just the most obvious in terms of like the emotional positioning, right? This is a character who is like vulnerable a lot. Vulnerable. Because yeah, like Sailor Moon is kind of a dunce, right? She's not good at school and she struggles, but she has her friends who help her out and care about her, and then like the big payout in the whole Sailor Moon thing is that her being like bad at regular life stuff and being kind of flaily is okay, because like she's got her friends, she's gonna get by, she's gonna manage, and she actually has this like great capacity for love and caring about all of her friends, and that's where she gets her power from. Yeah, the glass cannon of love and justice, absolutely. When the episode is almost over but you haven't won yet, right? It's totally that whole like thing in Sailor Moon where they're just like, we never need to have a creative solution, because at the end of the day we can always just have Sailor Moon like grit her teeth and get it together and do the Moon Tiara thing, right? It's kind of the poor writer's last ditch resort. And yeah, we are so beyond the statute of limitations of any kind of spoilers from Sailor Moon. I'm sorry, but the power of friendship wins. I just want to tell you that right now. So yeah, I'm feeling like pretty good about where we're at with all these playbooks. I'm sure one or two of these are going to get cut and replaced, and I'm sure we're going to change their names and change some of their character a little bit. But this is like totally a solid baseline for us to go from. These are all like helpful archetypes for doing this kind of fiction. Yeah, I need to hurry up and like make this game so that people can play it. I'm going to try to have a playtest at the end of February. It's like a loose goal that I have. I have to get my shit together on so many levels and in so many ways in order to make that happen. But can hopefully manage that. I think this is all I have time for today. But it was nice chatting and hanging out with you all. And I really appreciate people coming by and just like having things to say about the game, and the fact that people seem excited is really encouraging to me, and that really helps me actually finish this thing. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming by to check it out. We'll get into some more crunchy mechanical stuff of playbooks next session. We're going to look at just some generic playbook moves. Real quickly to preview that, we're going to look at Blades in the Dark, right? And there's some kind of core stuff that exists across many playbooks, like Tough as Nails. When you roll prowess, you get +1 die, or all the like Battleborn, right? You have special armor against a certain thing, and then when you roll a critical in combat, clear 1 stress, right? These kind of things that empower you situationally those are going to be some obvious starting points for playbook moves for all these, right? I think I can already start to imagine where we would want to, or what we would want those moves to look like for each character playbook. Yeah. So, anyways, that's what's up next week. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Means a lot to me. If you're watching on Twitch right now and you aren't following me and you want to be able to tune into these, you should follow me. You can't subscribe because I'm not a real streamer yet, but you can follow. If you want to help me have more time and energy to devote to this, please support me on my Patreon, which you can find by way of my Twitter, which is @CommutingCrow. There's a link to my YouTube and my Patreon in my Twitter profile, so you can check those out. And hopefully I'll see you all next week. Monday night, I'm pretty sure we're still doing Blades. Thursday, it's going to be D&D Adventures League. Friday is going to be The Sprawl. We're starting a new thing, which is a cyberpunk powered by the apocalypse game. I will be endeavoring to bring as much punk as possible because my beef with most cyberpunk is that it is too cyber and not punk enough. So you can check all of that out. And I'll be here again next week, similar time, to do playbook moves. So we'll see you then.